Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to Coruscant Radio Underground here on the Science Fictionary. I am Andrew, and I'm here tonight with Marisha.
How's it going?
And joining us again, a very special guest, Nicole.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad I have a place to come and chit chat about the Mandalorian and just geek out.
Yes, we're very excited, particularly about this episode.
Yeah, so we got, let's see, real quick before we get going, we've got a few people in the chat. We've got Lunar Girl has actually been here hanging out with us for about the last 15 minutes. And I see Dragon Buddy has joined the party as well as Ubaldo. So thank you guys for dropping in. And so technically we're going to cover 2 episodes.
Yes.
Which I barely remember that episode, to be frank.
Yeah. He was really, really sick.
That's true.
It was very much a fever dream of an episode, and I had 103-degree fever, and it was weird. Like I barely remember. Like I slept through most of Celebration. I tried to watch it all. I slept through most of it. I was doing something earlier, and I was like, "Oh, Easter's coming up." And I was like, no, you dummy, you missed Easter.
Aww.
Did you miss your child crying for 2 days?
I remember that now, but like...
Well, I'm glad to see you're on the mend and hopefully on the other side of it.
Yes, and so the only thing that's really nagging at this point is this cough, and I will try not to cough directly into my microphone while we do this. But it wasn't too bad until it was getting about time to start, and then I started coughing again. So my
water bottle.
And also hot teas and honeys, and then add some lemon and stuff. Gotta those vocal cords.
All the things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so whenever we do 2 episodes at once, I don't like to try to do a line by line breakdown because it gets to be too much with 2 episodes. So I kind of want to talk about it as one thing.
Okay.
But let's kind of talk about episode, what was it? Chapter 22?
Yep.
What was the name of the episode?
Well, I know this last one was called The Spies.
The Spies,
yeah.
yes.
This week's was The Spies.
It was
the week
the one
before,
with Jet Black.
Yeah, it's with Jet Black, Christopher Lloyd, and Lizzo.
Yeah. So let's talk about that one for a minute because it was kind of an oddball episode in the mix.
It was, and I've heard a lot of people say this, but we literally, as we're watching it, I said it just feels like a live action episode of the Clone Wars. Like it didn't, it was definitely a little quirky, but there were a lot of quirky Clone Wars episodes. So that's just right. That was just kind of my feeling on it. It didn't. Mm-hmm. It didn't really jerk me out. Like a lot of people were, just really couldn't like engage with the story because they were so distracted by the cameos. It didn't really bother me.
It didn't bother me either.
It was just like. Bothered. Yeah, it was just like okay,
so I actually think there's a lot of good stuff in the episode. And I actually don't mind. I really honestly wish we had seen Christopher Lloyd play such a good villain anyway. Yeah. I wish we had gotten to see a little more of his character. We sent him away where he can come back later. So it may be that we see some more of him down the road, either in more of this or even in an animated series eventually. Mm-hmm. I don't know. The Jack Black character totally works for me. Actually, the whole thing kind of works for me. It's this kind of weird place, but it's like Lizzo is a long ways from being a really professional, talented actress. Like but she was there. She did it. It was, and that's exactly what it was. And the only place where I really honestly felt like it, when she knighted Grogu, I went, okay, you just took it just a step too far. Like if you had just stopped just short of knighting Grogu, I'd have been like, okay, this was a weird, wild ride.
If she was directed to knight him, and it was wrote in. Then
Yeah,
she
and I'm sure it was.
do part.
And it was, but I think that there's some important things that go on in this episode, and I think a large part of it, depending on how the season shakes out next week, we really got to see Din and Bo-Katan working together, and not
Yes.
just them working together, but they kind of need each other at this juncture. We see Din trying to deal with droids. He's completely incapable of, and then she has no patience for working with the Ugnaughts.
Oh, and I love those. I was so excited, you guys, because I knew it. I was watching and I'm like, that's got to be Misty Rosa's. Like, this has got to be her. I know she was in another episode, but I just knew it. And then, like, a day or two later, she had put the picture out, and I'm like, I knew it. I knew it was her. And I was so excited to see her back. Like, I know she, she did Quill. She's done Frog Lady. Like, her and, Warwick Davis are about to go toe to toe, man. Like, how many characters can we each play? And
Yeah.
I did like it. And yeah. So anyways, that's what I was really excited about. I was glad to see like these other characters come into play. So
yeah.
I was a little surprised. I was expecting that we were going to see that typically whenever you show up on an idyllic world in these kinds of franchises, it turns out it's really terrible. It's like they've really got, they're, got slaves slaving in the mines, or, like a lot of times these kind of stories, it turns out that it's really just a facade. And I was expecting it to go a lot darker than it went. I was really surprised whenever there was really no twist that way. I was really expecting to be like, surprise, it's really the darkest, terriblest place we've been to yet. And it was just like, I did really think it was very interesting that literally they were like, yes, the droids can kill us all, but we voted to not shut them down because it would disrupt our standard of living. But I was like, that tracks.
Right.
100% tracks.
Well, and I kind of wonder if they did this to kind of show us and compare and contrast. Like, this is not necessarily Coruscant, but kind of has that quirky Coruscant feel, but not at the same time, more on the Paradise Coruscant way. But then at the same time, versus what the Mandalorians are going through, versus what they're going through Coruscant, or it kind of just gives us a different compare and contrast against other Star Wars galaxies of what's happening right now.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good thing. I mean, and that's something that as fans we've called for, is we want to see other planets that are different. And so we that's what they gave us. They gave us a new, different sort of planet. It delves into some of the questions that we've always had in Star Wars about droids. About what is their role and function in society, and how much autonomy should they have, and so I found all of that very interesting. But I think that we get some good character growth between Din and Bo.
Yeah, I have to say that is pretty funny. Like the Mandalorian, and the like endless good play on words there.
Yes.
I was kind of asking in the comments. Has anybody have either of you read iRobot?
Read it, or I watched the movie.
There's also the Will Smith movie.
There's just another
right.
movie
I've
too.
seen the movie,
I've
but I've not read the book.
The story is very, very iRobot. So iRobot is actually the novel is like a series of like vignettes of stories about robots, like at different times in the history, in the future history. It definitely, you kind of get a lot of the feel, like a lot of questions about like, okay, so what what does it mean whenever they're the ones caring for our children? What kind of rights do they have? Like, what kind, a lot of questions about the ethics and the practicality of a world where robots are doing a lot of the manual labors. And so I felt like this really went into a lot of the a lot of those kinds of questions.
I guess that also makes this kind of, with Din the way he is with droids, like I don't trust them, and it kind of explores that a little bit more, which they did.
Yeah.
I want to go back though on one quick note though on you talking about Grogu being knighted. Do you think that'll come into play in the long run of the life of Grogu?
It could. I don't know. I kind of at this point take it as sort of a throwaway thing, but it could.
You never know.
Like,
Dave Filoni's getting a movie, man.
Dave Filoni's getting a movie, and Dave Filoni is always playing the long game.
Yeah. So I just think that I'm like, I just kind of wonder where that will end up in the long run.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
if she was told to do this, I kind of go, I wonder there's got to be a purpose or a reason. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty good chance that it will come back around at some point.
Yeah. It's really going to kind of depend. Like, they really left me with this week's episode wondering a lot of things about where this story's going. So, I don't know. I think, I don't think that Dave Filoni does a lot of stuff that's just totally throwaway.
Right.
Dave Filoni learned to tell stories first from Tolkien and then from Lucas.
Yes. That's a double yes.
And he doesn't throw, like, lore is not there to just be tossed aside. Like,
correct.
Even if it seems inconsequential, like there has to be a purpose for creating something in the lore. So I think that's very much the way that Dave Filoni writes stories. If he wrote it, he has some purpose for it. It might be 2, 3, 4 years before we find out what that purpose was. But he doesn't just write things into his stories just because.
Very agreed.
Yeah. So I do think that there's a big chance that they do come back around and do something with that. And it is interesting. We're kind of watching Grogu go through, and Grogu doesn't even talk yet, but Grogu's sort of like, he's well on his way to becoming a Mandalorian. He's
a Mandalorian knight.
And he spent decades training as a Jedi, to become a Jedi. And he still could pursue that line, depending on where the story goes.
Yeah.
There are so many things that we kind of see him amassing these titles and roles as he moves forward in his very young life. So
he's really getting, like, we're seeing him increasingly like forging ties with lots of different really groups that I think are going to be important going forward. And even though he doesn't talk, he's clearly more aware of what's going on than we've given him credit for.
I don't know if I mentioned this maybe last time.
No. Yes.
Right. Oh my gosh, that was hilarious. But I don't know if I mentioned this the last time, but I know that the ladies at Force of Light Entertainment made a good point. What if the reason why Grogu doesn't speak yet is because of the trauma that he went through? What if it suppressed him?
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
I think
it's been a few weeks since they said that. I can't remember which episode, and I'm pretty sure it was Michelle or Natalie who said it. And I remember going,
that's actually
that actually makes
a whole lot of sense.
Well, and that's what we see in his time with Luke as well, is Din, I don't know if it was Din or Ahsoka remarks on how fast he's learning, and he says it's really more like I'm helping him remember than I'm teaching him.
Right.
And so I do think that, yes, I think that there's a good chance that there are a lot of things that have been suppressed.
Right.
possibly even by mechanical means.
Mhm.
At this point, now that we've seen the mind flayer and things like that, it's
Yeah.
possible that his abilities have not just been suppressed by trauma, which I think is a definite thing. I think that there's also the possibility that things have been possibly been suppressed mechanically.
That's
That's
that makes
scary.
so much sense though, because we've got. If you start looking at it, it's like he should be talking. Like he's not a baby. He clearly has the.
Well, they are definitely working us up to accepting him speaking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's and this we've gotten little verbalizations that have been more along the way of almost certainly repeating "this is the way." A couple of other
Mhm.
things. This week
Yeah.
we have the head nod with Den. There is progression, and they're, I think, wisely warming us up slowly to the idea of him speaking.
And actually, that is a fairly common trauma response in very young children or children. Period.
Oh,
Mhm.
absolutely.
To not speak. That's
We've,
definitely
I mean,
not.
not just in children. I mean, that's been witnessed in adult soldiers
Yeah, yeah.
where they just quit speaking.
But even it's more common in kids.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good, and I really think, especially when we saw him step in the middle of that fight in the last episode, I think that
Speaking of, there they are. Look at that.
Yeah. Thanks for jumping in the chat, Michelle.
I was just gonna say, I'm like, I was just talking about them.
uh-huh.
Their
Actually,
ears
I
burning.
think though that that's what they're doing. I really think that they are really setting Grogu up to really push his story forward as more than a cute prop, which he
Yeah, and I
mostly
think
been.
they're right. I think they're 100% doing that.
Mhm.
I think that when some reveals are made, there's going to be a point where it's going to feel like it jumps forward his progression, and we're going to
Mhm.
look back and we're going to see all the little steps along the way.
Mhm.
That I do think I think that maybe they're being a little overcautious with how slowly they're moving forward with that, but I do think that there's some wisdom in moving slowly with it as well. I think just showing up and having Grogu talking and stuff would have been jarring. I
Mhm.
think we have to work into that a little bit slowly. But I agree. I think that eventually, I think we all want to see Grogu be more than a prop. But
Right.
I think they're well on their way to that.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. I wanted to go back to this. So yeah, this is something we've talked about before. I mean, this is so I started calling this early in season one
Mhm.
that this is where this story was headed. That
Yeah.
when we talk about, I keep seeing a lot of people saying it should be clear by now that Bo Katan is the Mandalorian. And it's like, no, they're all the Mandalorian. Like this is the story of
Right.
the Mandalorian people. And it's branching out and covering more people. We're like we talked about last time you were on, Nicole, like
Mhm.
we're transitioning from a father son kind of um, uh, action series where it's just the two of them on an adventure to much more of an ensemble piece.
Yep. Mhm.
And I do think there are going to be times where Din is going to be the main character. There's going to be times when Bo Katan is at the front. I mean, we even got to see a character like Paz Vizsla step up and really take a much more front center role this
Yes.
past week. Um, I think we're going to see more and more. And I think if we're going to tell the story of the Mandalorian people, we have to give a lot more of these characters room to become important and to
Mhm.
have their own stories. And I think we're going to see a lot more as we move forward.
Mhm.
Um, especially we don't really know if we're going to get another season of this show.
I think we will. I think we're gonna get one or two more.
I do. Well, I think this show will run beyond whatever Dave's movie is potentially.
Mhm.
That Dave's movie is going to wrap an arc. But I feel kind of like where we're at right now, I don't see how they can wrap enough of the story up to get us to the movie in this next in one episode.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel
Right.
like we have to have one more season, at least one more season prior
Mhm.
to Dave's movie. Now,
Correct.
Dave's movie is probably not till
2020.
2026.
Yeah, it's gonna be okay.
I think,
WSTR actually figured this out last night. I want to say it's 2026.
yeah, because
Is
I
what
think
it's
2025 is
on.
the first movie, which at this point, are we assuming right now that the first one is the Ray movie?
I don't know. Now that
So
one I don't know.
I'm almost certain that it is, and that we'll do the Ray movie in 2025 because the rumor was that that one is they're almost done writing that one.
Hmm.
Then we will go to 2026. So I mean, we still could very easily get 2 or 3, even 3 seasons of The Mandalorian between now and a movie. And I
Hmm.
think we have to get at least one because I'm kind of scared of where they're going to leave us off next week.
Yeah, but I think we're still gonna get one more season. And I think also we have Ahsoka. And I think some of next week's is gonna point us into that direction. Like,
Mhm.
now go there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I do agree, though, that they could definitely leave us with a little more of a cliffhanger that I'm going to be happy about.
Yeah.
We'll just say.
Um,
Let's see. So I think that let's see, okay, so Nick was saying that if they had called the Book of Boba Fett the Mandalorian season 3, honestly, I really think that would have been like, I understand why they wanted to tell a Boba Fett story, but I really think that kind of the biggest issues with this season have kind of been related to Boba Fett and the parts of the stories that they told there.
yeah. Dave and John both told us before Book of Boba Fett came out that it was essentially Mandalorian 2.5.
Yeah.
Of course, it wasn't called The Mandalorian, so some people didn't watch it.
Right. Exactly. Well, because we were.
I don't know. I think they've learned a lesson. I think that it's like I didn't mind that those episodes were in The Mandalorian, but looking at it from the perspective of someone who's not watching everything, that probably wasn't the best move. Putting basically 2 episodes of The Mandalorian in the middle of the Book of Boba Fett.
I think that maybe it was. Yeah, I don't understand why they did it that way, and I think that it will. Well, baby dark saber. Yes, that's what we need. But I think, like, having had conversations with people who don't obsessively watch everything Star Wars, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to start the next Mandalorian." I was like, "Oh, okay. If you watch anything since then?" No, I was like, "Yeah, go back and watch those couple episodes of the Book of Boba Fett, or you're going to be confused."
I had the same conversation today during my lunch break. I had a coworker who was like, "Oh yeah, they're still on season 2 and whatnot," and I'm like, okay, when you finish that, before you begin the next season, either
Exactly.
watch the Book of Boba Fett or hit me up, and I'll tell you which episodes to watch, so you can
Exactly.
hear
Yeah.
some things. So
Yeah. So I see Dragon Buddy and Nick are having a conversation that we will definitely have before we wrap up here about who's going to show up. Like,
yeah,
someone has to show up to save the day at the end of this coming episode, or I guess the possibility is that no one shows up
I really.
and that we get a.
I don't want to see them all die again. I already did that.
I have a hard time believing that
I have
Dave
an idea who's going to show up, but I'll save that for when we get to it.
I have a hard time believing that Dave has brought us to the brink of the restoration of Mandalore to see it completely collapse.
Yeah.
But something I don't know. I've got some thoughts on that. We'll get into in a minute, but let's finish talking about anybody have anything? Yeah, Guns for Hire. That was the name of the episode.
Yes.
If anybody has any more thoughts on the episode Guns for Hire.
Okay, so while Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Nope, I'm good. Go ahead.
So while yes, it was definitely a little bit of a little bit of a fever dream of an episode with all of the Wonderland going on. Like the last 10 minutes were just some of the most legit story, and just I mean, it was like it totally made up for all of the like weirdness. And which I mean, granted didn't really bother me, but even if it had, that last few minutes was so cool.
my
I was
gosh.
like, all right, forget it. I don't even
Yes.
care. I don't even care about, feeling there ought to be playing cards, dancing around, thinking about painting the roses red. Because that ending was just so good.
Yeah, and then then her recruiting, the night owls and things like that, and seeing
Right.
them. And Sasha Banks is back, and I'm like, she said she wasn't going to return. She lied. She knew what she was doing. She knew she was coming back. This point, if we hear they're not coming back, we're just gonna be like, okay,
Yeah.
and wink.
Right.
Okay, but it was just so good. And then to see them, even her and Axis, have that fight.
Yeah. So what do y'all think about the way that Din gets the
Dave?
or that Bo-Katan gets the Darksaber back?
I mean, we called that, right? Back in that episode.
I think so.
Yeah, a lot of people did. I wasn't totally sure that merited combat.
Well,
but
also,
my other thought on that after it happened was as we were watching it, because we had that conversation several times, I looked at Marisha and said, this only works if Din says this is the way it happened.
right.
Bo-Katan shows up and says, well, I did this and it's rightfully mine. It doesn't work. Din has to be the one to say, look, she earned it.
Exactly. And technically she did. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it really plays out in the the finale next week.
I know a lot of people, I loved this, where the setting, where they've got these ships all on the ground. And it reminded me of a scene out of Knights of the Old Republic, when you get lots of ships actually, on the ground, particularly with the Mandalorians. Of course, these are different than Mandalorians than what we get in Knights of the Old Republic, but there's that whole shot feels like it could have been pulled directly from that video game.
Maybe that's where they got the inspiration from.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, they're constantly drawing from those sources. Honestly, that's my favorite thing about, and I think what sets Dave's and John's Star Wars apart right now is that they use everything at their disposal. I feel like some of the people making Star Wars are either unwilling to delve into the expanded universe stuff or the video game stuff, and so they're working with a lot less material, where I feel like John and Dave will go on a deep dive into all of this old stuff that's not part of the canon anymore to pull things back in.
Right.
So I feel like Dave uses that to really make his world feel a lot more rich. But I feel like, the end of that episode is good. Overall, I think what's disappointing to me about the episode, I don't mind it. I don't mind a lot of what happens. What was disappointing to me was, you kind of look at it where I'm looking, I'm seeing a lot of people going, I can't believe they did this. This is, this was a total filler episode. This was this. And I'm going, well, there's some good stuff in there. But then if I step back and look at it objectively and go, they had 2.5 years to make 8 episodes of a season, and that's where they chose to go. I go, okay, I get it. Like, looking at it from that perspective, the episode feels a little bit wasted to me.
I can see that.
But I do think overall, I think there's some good things that happen in the episode.
Purpose, though. I truly believe that they are purposeful. I think that
Oh,
we just
100%.
have
They're
those are the seeds that were planted. Just watch. Just it's it's interesting because everyone goes, "Oh, and Dave and trust, we Dave and Dave we trust," and then all of a sudden, the minute they didn't get what they wanted, it's completely away. And the week that they get what they want, they're right back right into in Dave we trust, which sounds like another familiar something else. But it's just really interesting.
yeah. I mean, honestly, my biggest problem with all of this is I'm still struggling with 8 episode seasons. I miss the days
'Cause
of,
we want more.
I know I miss the days of 22 episode TV shows,
We're spoiled. We're
right.
going to get Ahsoka next year. We're good. We're good.
Yeah, I am excited about all that. I'm excited to see Thrawn in live action. I think that's all gonna really go some interesting places. I think I may have to actually at least go back and watch Rebels. Might have to go back and watch Clone Wars too.
All right, well let's move forward into episode or chapter 23, Spies. This would be the 7th episode of the season, and I think this is I have seen complaints about the storytelling in this episode. That do y'all either of y'all have any issues with the storytelling, with the pacing, or okay? Because I enjoyed it. I thought like there's nothing in the episode that didn't make sense to me, didn't work for me. I think it's an incredibly strong episode. I like that. So what did y'all think about, we open up, we go back to Navarro. Of course, we're going to get, we're calling him IG-12 now, right?
Well, yes, that is IG-12.
What did y'all think about IG-12?
No. And my kids, and I'm just sitting there.
Ahsoka does look very good.
Oh, and the kids are like, "What?" I'm like, "You've never lived in the house of the 2-year-old." No.
Mecha Grogu. Yeah, the first thing I thought about was Master Blaster. But yeah, so what did you think about this whole scene, about this idea of putting Grogu in this droid?
He obviously wanted it, per usual. The dad didn't. Dad's like, no. He's like, Marisha, I don't want to hear that going, no, 1,000 times a day.
Right.
I think again we're on our way to this moment of when Grogu really starts speaking and things, but for the moment, I was accepting of it. I was like, okay, this is interesting. And I think there's going to be some, again, another reason there's going to be purpose as to why he is doing what they're having him do.
Yeah. Well, I think overall, I think that we're fixing to go on this pretty dangerous expedition to Mandalore.
Oh yeah. So next week, man. That's game on.
I think I think that they did a smart thing. I think that I don't think it's an overly complicated thing. I think they said, we can't have Din carrying Grogu through all of this.
Correct.
And he just can't keep up. So
right.
What can we do to make him less of a liability?
Right. And he's right in the, he's not short anymore either. He hasn't gained like Yoda's stature yet, that for only being a few feet he can hold his own. So
right. So I do think that it was a smart move. One, it gives him a little bit of agency. Mm-hmm. And we see him break up the fight between Axe and
and when he said that, well, to Bo-Katan Din Djarin, he didn't learn that from me. And I'm like, Luke, yeah, that's the Force. That's him going. And I would totally done the same. I would have been like, now, children, go to your corners.
Right. I love the head nod back at Din after he breaks up the fight. They're doing a lot of little very subtle things with Grogu, and
Mhm.
but it's getting to be, when you add it all up, it's a lot more complex. And
Right.
I think we're gonna get to see some pretty cool things over the next couple of
Mhm.
years with that character.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Um, I have to mention though, the beginning, um, well, wow, what a beginning! But then, right after the beginning, when the ships enter into Navarro, I
Mhm.
remember watching the first time, and I remember going, "Wait, is that that's not this that's not this," and then you see the painting on the ship, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh good, it's just the Mandalorians." I'm like, I like, my heart raced. One, my heart was already racing because of that beginning,
Right.
with Moff Gideon and the hologram, of the others, and I was just like, wow, like, and my brain also went, okay, we just saw this, and now this is here. Is this the same? And thankfully it wasn't the same. It wasn't them there in person. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and what a beginning. What a beginning. I don't know if you're gonna talk about that, but
Yeah, no. Let's
that beginning, I am still I'm still thinking on it. And I have several reasons as to why. Um, one, um, a name came that was huge to me, um and um and that was Brendel Hux.
Mhm.
He actually happens to be in real life the brother of oh sorry, Brendel Hux, who was played by Brian Gleason, who happens to be the brother of Dom Hale Gleason, who actually plays who in real life they're brothers, but
Right.
technically son. This is what kind of blew my mind. So last weekend at Celebration, Gwendolyn Christie, they had her there. And I went, why do they got Phasma there? Why is Phasma there? What's going on? And as soon as his character popped up, I went, because Brendel Hawks, one, he's in other stuff, but he's also in the book Phasma.
Right.
And I'm like, are they going to go there? Are they going to give us that? I mean, I do like that book. If you haven't read Phasma, read Phasma. It's really interesting. Gives us another glimpse into who Phasma is in a whole new way. Parts of it you want to root for, and other parts you're like, oh, go get a grip. So when his character popped up in that round, I was like, wow, okay. So I'm really curious. And there's other ones too. They were
Yeah.
who's and Thrawn's right hand man was
Paley
there. Oh my
Pelion.
gosh. The other one, again, my mind was just like my heart was racing.
Yeah.
I was so excited. So again,
Well
seeing the
well
ships go, I was
Pelion being there was one of
huge.
those well, it's not just huge. Like, they named, when as soon as they drop his name, like, I know I had a reaction to it, and then watching other people's reaction channels to it and seeing, you could tell if someone had read the original Heir to the Empire trilogy, because as soon as that name dropped, the jaw hit the floor. And it's as big of a moment as name dropping Heir to the Empire in that Ahsoka trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Paleon is Thrawn's right hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a really big, important character to have showing up here.
All I could think about also though during that whole scene, I mean, other than, oh my God, Thrawn, oh my God, are they going to do something with Phasma? And then, of course, knowing that they just done Gwendolyn Christie. And then I'm going, Mom, you're an idiot. You just put like a big X, a big red X, like on the back of your back at this point. Like, I could just see that, like, I could just, all of a sudden, I'm like going, Thrawn's coming for him. Thrawn is coming for him. This is not going to get him, this is not going to jive in the long run for Gideon. I don't see it. I just
Right.
uh, we'll get there when we'll talk about our predictions for next week. I'll get there. I have thoughts. So, but
Um,
what a moment.
right. Well, I mean, the whole Shadow Council sequence, the sequence with Elia Kane, they're
Mm-hmm.
doing some really, really fun stuff with um with Coruscant in those scenes
Yes.
where I feel like it keeps looking a little bit more and more Blade Runner every time
Mhm.
we see it. But seeing some of these lower levels, these were the things that we were supposed to see in George Lucas's TV show that never got made, or the Boba Fett video game that never happened.
Mhm.
This was the Coruscant we were supposed to get to see, and it's cool getting to see those shots.
Mhm. Um, and one more, because before we move on from that beginning,
Yeah.
I had seen somebody write this, and I just have to admit it because it's so true. Gideon going, "We must act now," versus Pelion. I hope I said that right. We must wait for Thrawn's return, but then Brundle Hawks goes, "We must wait for Palpatine's return." And I go, "Did
Right.
we just went Gideon, Thrawn, Palpatine. One, not even Vader. Nobody ever talked about Vader at this point. But it was just interesting to have all of that. Just all of it. It's just, yeah, it was something. Somehow
Yeah.
Palpatine returned.
Yeah. So it's like it's what DB was saying here in the chat. Like, they're not. There were all the people that were saying, "Oh, they're going to retcon the sequels." It's like they're not going to retcon the sequels. It's a terrible, regardless of what you think about them. That's a really bad business move. They're not doing that. They're not going to go there. But my hope is, and I have a lot of confidence in Dave Filoni in this area, that
You know.
he will do a lot to elevate the sequel trilogy story.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
He excels at that. That's what the entirety of the Clone Wars was.
Mm-hmm.
Was elevating those stories.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm so excited. I'm like, yes, let's go.
Gideon and Thrawn in a power struggle would be very interesting. I think it's
Yes.
possible, depending on what happens this coming week.
Oh,
People are going to die this coming week. I don't know who. I'm a little scared of who.
I have to get up early because I work that day, and I refuse. I refuse to wait to watch it later. Because anybody while I'm at work can, oops, no, or a customer. I don't want that to happen. I just don't want to be sad all day.
Yeah, no, I don't know what to expect. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities for where we could be going this coming week. All right, so all right, so the name of the episode is Spies.
Spy with an S.
With an S. What do you think is being referenced here? Because I saw something earlier that made me start thinking about this differently. Because I've been racking my brain trying to figure out who the other spy. There has to be another spy, right? Someone among the Mandalorians or something.
Right.
But we have constantly gone back to the well with the story of the Israelites. The Israelites being, scattered far from home and coming back to the promised land.
Mm-hmm.
And someone posted earlier that talking about the spies that were said, the 12 spies in the book of Numbers that were sent into Canaan to explore the promised land before the rest of the tribe entered. And so now I'm not even totally sure that we're referencing a spy in the ranks of the Mandalorians as much as we're referring to these people. We're comparing them to the 12 spies that were sent into Canaan to explore the promised land before the rest of the tribe came in.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Just keep talking. I'm like, okay, I'm all ears. I'm gonna just listen right here because this is a new concept. I'm like, wait.
Well,
I had my thoughts, and now I'm like, wait, that's
I hadn't thought about
that.
I had not thought of it that way, but I couldn't rationalize anyone in the Mandalorians being a spy. because they've obviously kind of wanted us to worry about the armor.
Oh no! I can't.
Maybe it's Axe Woves
Yes.
who leaves in the middle of the battle.
Yes.
But the problem is, and the only reason I can't make myself believe that one of them is the spy, is the genuine shock that that Gideon has when he finds out that the two tribes of Mandalorians are working together.
Yeah.
Like, if he had a spy, they didn't give him all the information.
Right. Or his spy turned on him.
Right. So now I'm not sure. And then we've done this thing with comparing them to the Israelites all season long.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then I kind of saw somebody talking about the 12 Israelite spies sent into Canaan ahead of the rest of the tribe. That's exactly what we did in this. They've gone in, they're going to see the danger that's there.
Right.
It is in keeping with the rest of what we've pulled from biblical text.
Mm-hmm.
So after seeing that totally, because I was convinced it has to be the armor, and then I saw that and I went, I don't know if there is another spy, or if this is what we're referring to is this group that went in to explore the promised land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm now you got my brain thinking. I'm like, no, like I hadn't even thought about it because again, right, because I have been like, for me, it's selfishly, I'm like, I don't want it to be the armor. I like her. I don't want her to be a villain. But then you come up with that, and I go, okay, we'll just go with that.
Yeah,
This is my selfish, like I just don't want her to be.
The reason that I'm at this point willing to go with that is because of Gideon's surprise.
Yeah.
Like if he has a spy within the Mandalorians, they may have changed sides on him.
Well, and note though, he did say, but which Mandalorian? And I kind of, that's why I also kind of go, well, could it have been Axis? Yeah, Axis was also gone.
Yeah.
And then the armor just happened to be gone.
And then you have this group of Mandalorians that shows up, these survivors that are on the planet. So this is my other thought. Initially, I was like, well, it could be them. Like, they're there on the planet. Maybe they just, the thing is we see several of them die. We see several of them die pretty gruesome deaths in the fight with Gideon's troops.
Right.
Which, if they're spies, I don't know how they got caught in the middle of the battle like that. However, my other thought was, what if it's not even the armorer as much as it is the people that the wounded Mandalorians that she's transporting to the fleet? Because she's the wounded Mandalorians that the armorer is transporting to the fleet.
What if they were
the last message she sends to Gideon or to the fleet is prepare to receive wounded? But what if they're not wounded at all? Like, what if?
Oh my gosh, you're right. What? Oh my gosh, we're like, there's just so much that could happen next week.
Right.
You're like, you have so many good thoughts and theories here.
But we possibly just sent soldiers disguised as wounded into our capital ship.
Wow.
We just sent a Trojan.
Wow.
Yeah. And the armorer could be a willing participant in that or not.
I hope not.
Right.
I don't want her to. But again, I guess because I've always liked the armor since the beginning. There was something authentic and genuine and good about her. And then, like, since I started listening to your guys' spiritual take on it, I was like, oh, yeah, she could be more like a priestess. And I don't want her to be
the bad guy.
No, exactly, Marisha. Exactly. I don't want her to be the bad guy. I don't want her to be the
you on that. It's like okay, it feels a little obvious at this point,
Right.
especially since she kind of like pieced out. It's like, especially since they did exactly what we all said with the Darksaber thing and the Bo-Katan and all of that. Since they waited like 4 episodes to actually do it, but I would like them to not do exactly the thing that every single person said. Ooh, that. I'd like them to do something different.
Yeah.
I just, yeah. And then can I get the words out? His name out, Paz Vilsa. Oh my gosh. What a change. What a big character development between the first time we met him and now. His
Yeah.
demise.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is huge. Like he sacrifices himself here at the end of this episode for people that he previously wouldn't have recognized as Mandalorians.
Yep. Huge. That's a big character development again since we first met him.
Yeah.
But again, I think that between him and Din saving his son, and then recognizing Bo-Katan, and then and then all of a sudden, no, I got to do this, and it's like, what's gonna happen to your son, dude? You got a kid. Like, how's gonna happen? But at the same time, it's like, I get it. You know how many times in the military? Okay. This is real life, though. In real life, we have people in our militaries that every day they go out and they know this is what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of the intriguing things. I mean, they've established the Mandalorians as a very Spartan culture. And the thing about cultures like that is he can go sacrifice himself and die like that because his son will be cared for by the tribe.
Right.
You know, without that, then that makes the sacrifice a lot harder. But yeah, I mean, what a big moment and a big turnaround from a character that we were never sure exactly what he was about until this season.
Where he was coming from, like he was a couple of times I felt like he walked right up to the line of being the antagonist in this series.
Well, we were still speculating just a few episodes ago that he could still turn out to be the antagonist.
Right. Yeah.
I'm assuming you threw out there your theory about
the spies.
The spies, yeah.
I did.
Oh my gosh. And my brain went.
As soon as you said it, I was like, oh, that's actually, I like it. I like it. They're spying out the land.
Yeah, so
it's a pretty good one.
Well, and the fact that this episode was titled The Spies, and they didn't give us a character that fit the description in the episode.
Character.
Right, exactly.
Right. We got one, but we didn't get a second character that fits the description. So that's when I saw this other possibility that's so in keeping with the themes we've been playing on all season long that made sense to me. And so I think that's where I'm going. I mean, honestly, at this point, I'm hoping that there aren't any dissenters in the ranks of the Mandalorians. Like at this point, they've got us rooting for most of these people, and I'd like to see that they're all the basically the 3 tribes that we have now: the survivors, the people who stuck it out, stayed on Mandalore. And then the children of the watch, and I want to see them all have a place in this new creation of Mandalore. But
and come together.
Yeah, but we got to get rid of Moff Gideon. Like at some point, they got to just like straight up actually get like he can't just continually like be like, ha ha. Surprise, I'm back. Like that's only clever so many times.
Right. I think I was telling Andrew earlier, we were talking about the at the beginning, and Moff Gideon and Hux was there, and then Pallion was there, and I'm like, dude, Thrawn's right hand man's there, and you just put a red X on your back. Like, I'm like, I can
Please
see
shoot
it.
him, please.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that means they introduced us right away. It did this one, and it's. I have thoughts, but it's also in my predictions for next week also. So,
but no, Gideon, when Thrawn shows up, if Gideon's still around, like he definitely has a target on his back.
mhm.
You know, I don't know if we're going to see any Mythosaur riding this season.
I don't think that it's
I don't. Okay, so when we kind of get into the who could show up to save the day, I think there's a number of characters that could potentially show up to save the day.
Agree.
But let's remember, there's nobody like our people. Bo-Katan and Din Djarin are on the planet with no way to communicate with the outside world. Grogu might be able to communicate with Ahsoka.
Ooh, or Luke even.
Or Luke. And everybody keeps talking about Boba Fett, but the only person outside that could probably call for Boba Fett's help is either Axe Woves or the Armor. And whether either one of them would call for Boba Fett's help, I don't know.
What about Grief Karga? Do you think anything he could lend a hand? Or what about the New Republic? Hello, we had
we
at
do
the beginning too. We could almost all of a sudden see, X-wings flying.
We could see Carson Teva and his crew just because they've been keeping an eye on things. I think they make more sense actually because there's more of a chance of them just showing up to see what's happening.
Yeah,
right.
But I think if they do, they're kind of going rogue because I think it's become clear they're really not, they're not supposed to be going over there.
Right, or they're showing up because they're just doing a watch and checking in on things. And they go, something's up, and wait a minute, But I also believe that we're truly beginning to see the beginning of the First Order. We're seeing this, and it's exciting and and developing the big bads and
right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they develop this across this show, the Ahsoka series, whatever the movie. I'm assuming that the movie will really be where we sort of do and really kind of do the Heir to the Empire story is going to be there in that movie.
We're just going to see,
but it can't
until then.
But how do they do it where the Seventh Fleet, the Imperial Seventh Fleet, isn't big enough of a threat for the New Republic to really do anything? Because we know that they don't really do anything between there and the arrival of the
well, maybe they just
First Order.
Maybe they just stay in the Outer Rim.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that all this just happens in the Outer Rim.
And the New Republic is, basically they seem to be taking a philosophy of, if you didn't sign our treaty, you can go take a long hike on a short pier. Basically.
No, I mean, we could see this depending on how this goes with Mandalore. What I've talked about for a while is we could see Mandalore become the major player in this region of space anyway. I think that that's very intriguing, especially coming out of the sequel trilogy, having a strong Mandalore.
I would love to see Mandalore just be its own thing.
Yeah. Well, no, and I think that's what it will be. But I think that we potentially now have a strong Mandalore even during the reign of the First Order.
Yeah, and I think they just don't even touch anything that's going on during the sequels.
So this is what I keep playing around with and what I keep battling in my brain with Moff Gideon. Okay. I really want him to be taken down. I'm not going to lie. I'm over it. I'm ready. Let's go. But what I'm battling though is that I'm like, okay, yes, I feel like he just put a huge giant X on his back from by Thrawn, because I really believe that information would get back to him. However, part of me really wants Bo-Katan to take him down, because like she needs that. She needs that leadership, that that
it would be very good for her position.
Oh, hold up. We need to go back, okay? Because we're talking about Moff
Well,
Gideon.
there's a few things we hadn't covered.
The New Republic, right? Remember, they did know that Moff Gideon got out, so they are looking for him. So it is a very good possible. Well, and right now they're
when Carson Teva knows he's out,
because they're like, oh, the Beskar. What they don't realize is that Moff Gideon took the Beskar. Jerk.
Yeah.
Anyways, and so. But yay to the actor, because he plays a really good villain. So it is a very good chance that we're going to find them next week, because they're probably also looking for him now. Oh, look who's showing up.
Yeah.
There he is. Weasel.
Well, and we also, I mean, we have
Bo-Katan, though, even as much as I want to see Ron and show him that being the way, because it's going to get back to him. But I just... Yeah, I would love to see Bo-Katan still, because she needs that battle to get it.
I want to see her fight Gideon.
Yes,
but I also I don't know who is going to deal with the Praetorians.
Yeah, wow, they were great.
The 3 Praetorian guards are going to be a real force to be reckoned with.
The thing is, though, like, the council sent those Praetorian guards, and they may just decide, we don't care about your little vendetta on Mandalore, send them back.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen in the span of what's going to happen. I think we're going to get pretty much an immediate continuation from where we stop into this next episode.
Wow.
Now, it's also possible that no one shows up, and that the Mythosaur wrecked shop on the Imperial base.
And one more note. I said this a couple of weeks ago when we saw the Mythosaur. During the episode, we also saw that thing with a creepy eye. Okay? That creepy eye, like, reminds me that I'm like, I think there's a human inside, or something that's watching them. And I still think it's possible that that thing is there, and that it's related to something else. Like, I'm still like, okay, what was that? What is that connected to?
Yeah.
Because I just have a feeling. We'll see. I know it's going to be a cliffhanger, we already know that it's going to be a cliffhanger, but we want to at least be somewhat satisfied when we end this and not be in complete pools of tears.
I mean, I think the grand story, the overarching story, is definitely going to be a cliffhanger. We may be even left wondering whether some people are alive or dead. But I want to see I think we have to see.
You have to resolve something.
Yeah.
You can't just leave everything hanging.
No, not after waiting 2.5 years to give us this season. You have to resolve something.
Yeah.
So I think now resolving could be the Empire has been chased off of Mandalore, but only weakened. Or that our heroes have been chased off of Mandalore and now have to go regroup.
I want them so badly to have Mandalore, because that was what the season was about, and just
right.
Or this is just another battle in order to gain it back. I don't know. I'm excited for it. I just think next week's we're gonna be all on pins and needles and excitement and anxiousness, and our hearts are going to feel like they're jumping out of our chest, just like it was this week. I swear, I thought last Wednesday, I was like, it was just yesterday. Oh my gosh, 2 days ago, my heart felt like it was just.
No, I watched that episode, and it went off when the credits rolled. I went, it's going to be a really long week. But I don't know. This episode is just so good. So many little moments. The moment where Grogu breaking up the fight. One of the biggest moments in this episode is Din talking to Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan is saying, "Look, I can't do this. I have no idea. All I have is this blade." And he said, and he says, "Well, truth be told, that
We don't care. About
blade
your blade.
doesn't mean anything to me or my people."
Yeah.
Right. It's your character.
Right. That's you. We're following you.
Yeah.
And I think that goes that's a huge moment in this story where she's had so much doubt of whether or not she was meant to lead or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I'm also curious as to where we know that we're going to be getting Sabine in Ahsoka. Yes.
Yeah.
And Hera. Yes. Well, but Sabine is a Mandalorian.
right.
And her family, of course, has been in the palace and stuff. So it's kind of like, will that ever cross paths? Because they got to. They've got to.
It's possible that we see those characters show up as part of a New Republic fleet next week.
Oh, now that would be fun.
Well, Zeb, we didn't set up the fact that Zeb is with Spinward Patrol.
Yes, see?
Like
Zeb. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm still excited over Zeb appearing. Like that was just like a.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. I don't think we didn't set up the fact that Zeb is there as part of that unit for no reason.
Exactly. See how this is working out. I get this now. Okay, so we combine the Zeb with what I said, and we have next week's finale. Congratulations, you're welcome.
I think you made an excellent point though about Gideon being the reason for the New Republic to show up.
Yeah,
I think that's like now that you say that really does track.
I
think that
like I want to see Boba Fett show up, but at the same point, Boba Fett's one person.
Yeah,
right.
Like Boba Fett's not really the person we need to show up to save the day right now. We need someone with a fleet, really.
And do you ever think that, or see, I'm like, do we want Moff Gideon to end now, or do we want to keep him on? I also heard somebody say that they think Moff Gideon's connected to Snoke, and I'm like,
well,
if he's related to Snoke, then that means we're gonna have him a lot longer than next week. And I'm like, I love the actor. I love to hate Moff Gideon. He's up there with Professor Dolores Umbridge, that witch. Sorry, had to. But it's a character I love to hate. So it's like, what do I don't even know what I really want to do with it.
Yeah.
It's like, do I want him to live? Do I want him to be done? I haven't decided yet.
I mean, I'm not going to complain if we get some Sonic charges. Like,
the Sonic charges are great.
Still maybe the coolest sound effect in all of Star Wars.
Pew-pews and brewing.
What else? What else do we need to cover? You didn't get a chance to tell us what you thought of Grogu, and other than the yes and no, what you think about Grogu being in his mech suit.
I think it actually is an interesting, because like at some point it's like you can't keep bringing this bassinet into your war zone. Like, if you're going to keep taking your baby into your war zone, you got to do something different. So I think that this is kind of a way where he can physically keep up with everybody else. And I think that also, the conversation we're having about developing the character a little bit as a character in terms of prop, I think this is another step to that.
Yeah.
Until he gets a lightsaber, until all those things kind of happen.
Will he carry a saber?
Well, let's see. What else do we need to cover?
I want to say this. I did see, and I really want it, but I don't know how to make it, but I want to figure it out. Somebody had posted a picture, and I had to tweet it out today. It was a retweet. An IG-12 Lego, and it has Grogu in the middle. I'm like, and it's walking, and I'm like, I need that.
Yeah,
I need this in my Grogu collection.
Like, that's definitely
No, they definitely they did George Lucas proud with that one
Yeah.
because many
Marketing.
toys will be sold.
Marketing.
Well, that was somebody who got creative and just
Mm-hmm.
decided just to do it on a whim.
Yeah.
It's not even being sold through Lego. And I'm like going, Lego,
Oh,
did
yeah.
you see what they did? Why didn't you give us that yet?
Yeah, that's funny.
That's one thing I would totally buy that Lego set of
Yeah.
of IG-12 and build him and put Grogu in the middle. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty fun one.
So what did y'all think about the variant of stormtroopers that we got? Gideon's troopers.
Wow.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
mean,
excited because
they fly now.
the
That's what I
Mandos
watched so many times.
know how to kill them.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's an excellent
Well, it was
point.
when it came down to hand-to-hand combat, the Mandalorians are still
Yeah.
Mandalorians.
And I'm like,
and I
heck
think these are
yeah.
obviously, you know, we have a I think these are where we're at in the evolution of what started off. We had Mandalorian super commandos
Mhm.
that served the Empire. And then we see Imperial super commandos that are being trained by Clan Saxon. And I think this is the next evolution, that these are essentially Gideon's super commandos, but maybe are no longer being trained by Mandalorians.
Mhm.
I mean, it becomes clear I think they'd really be a force to be reckoned with fighting anybody else. But when it comes to fighting actual Mandalorians, they're not as well suited as I think that.
Yeah.
their
Well, when it gets to
creators
hand to
might want.
hand, it
Well, that's it's like they were holding their own, and it was like, oh, this is looking pretty bad. But then, like, they got in close, and it was like, oh, you weren't prepared.
yeah, all the
Weren't prepared
Mandalorians
for
went all
the
John Wick.
toys and the jerking around and the all
Well,
the
knew
things.
exactly where to shoot.
Mhm.
Mhm. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's something though.
So cool. And of course, like I still can't get over the Paz Vizsla scene.
Oh,
I don't know what Paz Vizsla's kill count was, but having his gun actually melt down was such a cool visual effect.
yes.
I really thought that it was
was.
going to overload and he was going to throw it at him and it was going to explode.
Yeah, well, it just melts down. He detaches it and beats some guy with it. And I like by the end, like he knocks one guy out and then for no good reason just grabs him and slings him off the cliff.
Yeah.
I'm over this. Get out.
Yeah. But the Praetorians are kind of the big question. Like, I don't know that we have anybody there prepared to fight Praetorians hand to hand. Now, it may just be an overwhelming numbers thing.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I don't know where we're going. I don't know what to expect. Do y'all have any theories that we haven't discussed on who might show up next week?
I mean, again, it's like I haven't decided yet if I want to continue to hate Moff Gideon or if I'm done. And if he's still around, I just don't know. And it's like I want Bo-Katan, but I want Throne. I want it all in my cake and eat it
And
too.
we're gonna
That's
get it all.
it's what it
We'll
is.
see how long it's going to take us.
Exactly. We'll see. I'm just so excited for next week, right? I'm just excited for what is coming. I'm not sure if my heart is ready for that, but
I'm just glad that when this one ends, we don't have to wait all that long for Ahsoka.
thank God.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that we will still get an end credit scene. I think we're going to somehow see Thrawn next week. I don't know how. I think we'll see Thrawn.
I think there's a good chance we see Thrawn. I think back episode maybe 2 or 3, I went on Scarif with Ro and we talked about it, and and I predicted then that we would see Thrawn at the end of the season. We're going to see somebody.
That's me too. Mhm.
And we kind of have gotten to see, even though not in this show, but the trailers that all came out at from Celebration, we got to see everybody else. We got to see Hera and we hadn't seen everybody. We didn't see
Hold on.
Ezra.
I heard. Well, I thought we saw him in a hologram.
We
did
just see the
saw-
hologram of him, though. That's all we saw.
Again, WSTR last night was talking about this, and they had mentioned there's a very good possibility that they had a different trailer shown to them than it was to us.
Yeah. Now they did. There was, so I think the trailer was the same, but they got to see some additional footage that we didn't get to see at home. It was going around online, but the quality was terrible, and I just refused to watch it.
I
because the
have not
quality was
seen
bad.
this, but even then, I'm just like, how many times probably was it taken down? Like by the order of Lucas.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, I've seen screenshots from it. They definitely got to see Thrawn, but the screenshot's bad. You can't tell much. But as far as characters that we haven't seen recently because of that trailer, as the general audience has not seen Thrawn.
Can't wait.
We just got to look at everybody else. I think that it's Thrawn that we get a look at. Maybe even Gideon getting a message from Thrawn, which will more than likely strike a little bit of fear in Gideon. Gideon's gotten a little too
big for his britches there.
Yeah. So.
Oh my gosh. So exciting.
Yep. Only 5 more days.
I know. You're right, Andrew. I'm like, we do have to wait. It feels like forever.
Oh, Adeline's gonna have a fit.
Do what?
Middle child's leaving.
Oh, she's not going to be here.
She's leaving town Wednesday morning.
She better watch it. She better get up and watch it before she goes.
Yeah.
We'll have to figure that out. I'll get her up and watch it with her.
I'll reinstall. So I took all the video apps off of their Kindles because I'm mean like that. I guess I'll have to put it back on for her to watch. Watch the last Mandalorian episode while she's on vacation with her cousins.
You know, because these are priorities. The Mandalorian, gotta watch it. Because
oh well, you know, WandaVision. We had an ice storm whenever WandaVision was like right in the middle of WandaVision, and so we were literally at his grandmother's house with the generator going, like street watching it on the Kindle, all of us.
With terrible internet.
With terrible internet. Like it took it like 2 hours to buffer. Because it was like, we gotta see what happens. Yeah.
That is total commitment. I love it.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to probably wrap it up for the night. I know Nicole's got to go get ready to head over to the Red 5 Tavern.
I know. I'm returning to the Longhouse tonight. This is going to be interesting, and even Kazara, who hasn't been in here for a while, Grant from Dork Wars, he'll be there as Kazara. So I know it's going to be interesting. I think the Dungeon Master Mr. Socharos from Conversations has some great things in store and scary things in store.
Awesome. Well,
so
great.
It'll be fun.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, I will see y'all over there in the chat for that.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, and that'll be in an hour and 5 minutes. So if you're watching, going up there too.
Yeah, it's a place to be on a Friday night. Once you're not young anymore.
Oh, what are you talking about, Marish? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're
But,
like, keep telling yourself that, Nicole.
But Nicole, I want to give you a chance to let people know where they can find you online.
All right. Other than tonight on the Red 5 Tavern. Okay. Okay. So I'm Nicole of Peace Love Fandoms on Twitter, Instagram, as well as TikTok. I am 1/3 of Used and Abused podcast on Tuesday nights, and that's also on Instagram as well as Twitter. 1/2 of Peace Love Disney on Facebook. That's a Facebook page, and that's where you can find me.
Awesome.
Also part of the really cool Red 5 network that we're in. Also, I mean,
yeah,
you find that network, you're pretty much going to find us.
Yes, doing all the things.
What about you, Marisha? You can't say you're not online because you have been online more here lately.
I've
it comes in waves, right?
Twitter's been slightly less toxic than it sometimes is. So I've been on Twitter a little bit. I'm P Padawans on Twitter. But I'm very unreliable. So you know. If you're following me for any sort of stability in your life, you're doing it.
But hey, we you might have some stuff. We're gonna try to do Mississippi Comic-Con here in a
That's
few
true.
weeks. And,
You guys are going to Dragon Con?
well, hopefully we're
no,
going to
until
Dragon
September.
Con. That's not till September. So
Oh, okay. What's coming up then?
Mississippi Comic-Con is coming up in June.
Cool.
And I know Christopher Lloyd is a guest. Sean Astin is a guest.
I'm like, wait, now you have 2 reasons to go see him.
Right.
Okay, a lot of reasons. Okay, it's Christopher Lloyd, you know, Back to the Future, and the Mandalorian, as you know, in the DeLorean. Do you think that they just wanted to make our dreams come true because they've heard this before and they're just like, well, they said it, so we gave it to them?
I mean, it definitely doesn't seem like an accident.
Nope.
I honestly thought they were going to do something when I heard he was in the series. I honestly thought they would make him a big name Imperial.
Yeah.
Is what I really thought they were going to do, but they didn't go there. So,
Or is he a spy?
it could be. Maybe he's the other spy.
What about you, love? Where can we find you?
All right, you can find me running the Twitter account for this show at _fictionary or at crew_podcast, CRU_podcast. You can find both of our audio podcasts, Coruscant Radio Underground and the Science Fictionary, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And as always, you can find our podcast as well as all of the rest of the Red 5 podcast network at bio.link/Red5. Glad to be back. Hopefully we will be back to a normal schedule and I will stay well. And maybe even next time I'm on here, I won't be coughing up a lung, although I'm planning on being back on here tomorrow to do some catching up on Star Wars Celebration news. So I will probably still be coughing. So forgive me. All right. Thank you to everybody who dropped in the chat tonight. I don't remember who all was here for sure, but I know we had Ubaldo T, Dragon Buddy, Nick, Michelle, Lunar Girl, and do what?
You said Nick.
And I said Nick. So I think that was it. If someone else was here, I'm sorry I forgot to mention you, but thank you for dropping in our chat. Everybody have a good night. Head over to the Red 5 Tavern here in just a little bit. Check that out. And until next time, may the Force be with you.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.